And eventually, my mother was like, "You have paper, son. You're able to work out here in the United States. I trust you enough to go do it." And not too much her fault, but a 16-year-old kid getting a taste of the world, of the bad things, not too much of the good things. Yeah, I had ambitions. Yeah, I wanted to come over here and help my mother out, but just having these influences around me, I wanted that quick money. I wanted to do anything it took to help my mother out, to show her that I cared for what she had done for me. But I didn't realize the type of life that I was stepping into.
Introduce yourself.
All right. My name's Alejandro, and I wanted to share my testimony with y'all. Um, how I got here to connect it to heaven, and where the Lord has me right now, what He's done in my life, and just the path that it took me to get here. I started off, as a good kid. I grew up, I had both of my parents at that time. My brother, we were all young. We were all, how kids are, just doing what they do. But somewhere down the road, how things happen. Had my dad, but my dad, he wasn't that example. He was just a provider for the house. Didn't really pull us to the side. Didn't really teach us how to be men. And me watching my older brother, my older cousins, I used to look at them as my example. I was maybe 8, 9 years old. I was watching my brother. So we would share the same room, and I would watch my brother and do heroin in front of me. Just nodding off. While I'm sitting there playing on my video game. I used to look at life like that was a norm. But how wrong was I? And I was afraid of him. He would tell me not to tell anything to my parents, and I took that to the heart. And just grew up with that fear that either he wouldn't have the drugs or he was on drugs. He just had that violent behavior where he would just take it out on me. Sometimes I would just rather just stay at school. I wouldn't even want to come home. And around the age of 12, that's when things really started to get worse. My parents split up. Me and my mom, it was just me and her at the time. And bouncing from house to house, just going through it. She was a lady with no papers. She couldn't really provide for me the way that she wanted to. I remember going to school and wearing the same pair of shoes, the same clothes that I did from the year before. I had kids making fun of me. It was tough times, but I could truly say that I'm very grateful for her. She did what she could for me. She was a woman at the end of the day. A woman can only teach a young boy so much. And she finally just threw in the white flag and decided, it was time for us to just leave to Mexico and go live over there. And I understood, I didn't like to see my mother struggle. I would hate to come home and, seeing tears in her eyes that, she couldn't get a job, that she couldn't provide for me the way that she wanted to. I had to grow up a bit fast. I had to go to school, getting out of school, I had to go to work. And eventually, my mother was like, "You have paper, son. You're able to work out here in the United States. I trust you enough to go do it." And not too much her fault, but a 16-year-old kid getting a taste of the world, of the bad things, not too much of the good things. Yeah, I had ambitions. Yeah, I wanted to come over here and help my mother out, but just having these influences around me, I wanted that quick money. I wanted to do anything it took to help my mother out, to show her that I cared for what she had done for me. But I didn't realize the type of life that I was stepping into, you know, hanging around the wrong crowds, just having people around me that, that weren't supposed to be there. And, like they say, you either see it or you learn from experience. But being stubborn and clumsy like I was, I ended up wanting to learn by experience. I wanted all the hardship. I wanted to see what it was like to be a man, and that to me was being a man. The hustling, the quick money, anything that had to do with money, I wanted to be involved in. By the age of 18, I already had gunshot wounds in my body. For not even for my doing, just being at the wrong place at the wrong time. Just just trying to live life. And months later, I remember I had met a girl that I really fell in love with. I could sincerely tell y'all it was my first love as a kid. 18 years old. She died from cancer, and that's when it triggered something in me to where I was like, I got to do something about this pain. So I started taking a bunch of Xanax to try to ease the pain, but not knowing that I was only trying to mask it. I was only trying to hide it. Wasn't trying to feel it, but I wanted to get away from all of that. And as time passed by, I found myself in a hole. I found myself not knowing how to get out of it. Catching seizures. Just not handling my business like I was supposed to. And the hustling wasn't making it no better. The people around me wasn't making it no better. And eventually I ended up telling myself I need to get away from everybody. Nobody cares about me. I'm in this alone. I can do this. I'm gonna get out of this by myself. And yeah, I tried many times. Try to isolate myself. And all that really led to was me trying to take my life 3 times. I would try to overdose myself and not wanting to wake up anymore. But every single time that I woke up, I would ask the Lord, why? Why do you still have me here? Why am I still here if I'm no good for nothing? I'm not helping myself out. I'm not helping my mom out like I said I was. Why am I still here? And, just time went by, and I would cry to him, asking him the same thing over and over. Until one day, I remember I was talking to my cousin, and I told him like, hey, I'm tired of living this life. I'm tired of just being alone, just tired of just being tired, basically. And I was on the phone with him, and he told me to bow my head down. I'm gonna pray for you. And I'm kind of staring at the phone at the moment, like, what? You're gonna pray for me? Not really believing it. And he prayed for me. He did what he did, and told me, look, I'm out of town right now, but when I come back, I'm gonna go pick you up and take you to church. And that's how I got introduced to Christ. But at the same time, I still wanted to live life how I wanted to live it. I didn't want to surrender fully to the Lord. I didn't want to feel like, I was being controlled, basically. I had one foot in church, one foot in the world. Yeah, I was free from the drugs. Yeah, I didn't have bad influences around me, but I was still being that type of guy that wanted quick money, quick earned money. And, it eventually caught up to me. I remember, fast forward to 2024, I was losing everything. I went from having it all to losing it all. Truck payments started mounting up on me. rent payments started mounting up on me. And at the time, I already wanted to come back to the word, to the Lord. I had left for years and wanted to come back. And I always knew that He had a greater purpose for me. I just didn't know how to fulfill it. I just didn't really want to truly surrender to Him. And I came to a Bible study one day. I was going through all my troubles. Everything around me was coming down, and I came to a Bible study here. I connected to heaven, and I just recall that I felt a sense of peace in me, in my heart. I felt like He was telling me, like, hey, don't worry about the money. Everything's gonna be okay. Yeah, you might lose everything, but it's gonna be all right. And I had my girlfriend, now my wife, with me. And I left church that day feeling so good. I hadn't felt peace like that in a long time, in years. And I even told her I had a scheme coming up. I wanted to go get some money because all these payments were coming up. And, she didn't want me to do it. The Lord already had told me not to do it. But then at the same time, the enemy was throwing their fiery arrows at me, that when I would see anything that had to do with payments, I would panic. I wouldn't know how to react, how to take control of the situation. But I had a guy that called me. He was like, "Hey, man, I got people waiting at the border. They just need to get picked up." And to me, I'm like, "Oh, easy money. Quick few $1,000s. I'm gonna go get them and come back." I left and never came back. I ended up getting 7 counts of human smuggling. I ended up getting locked up. And while I was in jail, I would pray. I know it sounds like jail talk, but I would pray and ask the Lord, like, hey, if you let me out of here, I'll make sure that I surrender my life to you. I'll make sure that I follow into the footsteps of Christ. I don't want to live this life anymore. I don't want to be in here. And sure enough, I asked him if he would let me out on a Tuesday. I'll make sure I'll make it to Bible studies here on a Wednesday. And I remember clearly them calling my name on a Tuesday, telling me, hey, Mr. Lainez, pack up your mat, it's time to go. I looked up at the ceiling at the time because, I was incarcerated, and I'm like, man, Lord, the grace that you've had upon me, even though after I didn't listen to you, it just brought me to tears. It brought me to just really thank Him. And, fast forward, I've been out for over a year now. I serve at the church. I'm married now. I'm very grateful for my pastors that He put in front of me, for all my family here at the church. It's really taught me a lot, a valuable lesson, like really showing me how to surrender to the Lord, really restoring me, restoring my health, taking away the bondage I had on the things for the world. And I'm truly grateful. There's nothing that could really take me out of can't take me out of this walk, because I know where my heart stands now, and I know that He has a greater purpose for me than being in jail. And yeah.
What would you say to somebody that's going through your situation?
For anybody that feels like they're alone, like they don't have anybody, that they feel that the walls are caving in on them, just truly trust in the Lord. I know you might not see things happening the way you want them to happen, but just know that He will get you out of any situation, that His grace, that His mercy will really pull you out. And His plan for you is greater than anything you can think of, than anything you can place yourself in. Like, it's just so amazing how He works, how He lines things up. So you can really be consecrated for Him, so you can really be surrendered to Him.